Here, let's put it that Olivia Hooker. Hooker, Hooker.
I heard you from Oklahoma.
Yep, I'm from Tulsa.
You're the original survivor.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yes, you do.
Wait, before
No.
you do,
Well,
I'm 77.
well, I'm 95, and I was 6 years old at the time of the disaster. I refused to call it a riot because it was really, whites decided to burn down the homes of 10,000 people. So that was not a riot. It was planned desecration. And so we were just small children. And my family had not told me about prejudice and hate and things like that. I thought everything in the preamble to the Constitution referred to me. I didn't find out until this terrible night that they...
This was a very prosperous community.
Yes, and they used to call it Black Wall Street.
From May 31st through June 1st, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma faced a horrific tragedy. From the early 1900s until late May 1921, African Americans in particular were thriving in Tulsa. In 1901, the Red Fork oil field, and in 1905, the Glenpool oil field were thriving. Because of the success of these oil fields, Tulsa was named the oil capital of the world. The oil boom led the population a boost to 10,000. This was just the beginning of Tulsa's economic growth. In the 20th century, many African Americans decided to migrate north and west to leave behind economic oppression and civil injustice. Even though Tulsa was one city, it didn't feel that way. It was like Tulsa was split into two different sections. Some whites even called the more African American dominant part of Tulsa Little Africa, but that part of Tulsa became known as Greenwood throughout the years. Booker T. Washington referred to Greenwood as Negro Wall Street, and that's how Black Wall Street was born, a name that stuck till this day. The economy and population was booming. Black Wall Street was home to 108 black-owned businesses, such as banks, salons, gas stations, grocery stores, pawn shops, jewelry stores, and even movie theaters. In late May, tragedy hit Black Wall Street and devastated an entire nation. Dick Rowland attended Booker T. Washington High School, but unfortunately he dropped out and started working at a shoe shine parlor at 19. There weren't any restrooms at the shoe shine parlor, so the employees were allowed to go to the nearby color restroom in the Drexel building. The elevator operator for the Drexel building was 17-year-old Caucasian woman Sarah Page. Monday morning, May 30th, 1921, Dick Rowland and Sarah Page were on the elevator in the Drexel building. Accounts vary, but the most common story was that Mr. Rowland tripped and tried to catch his fall, but accidentally grabbed onto Sarah's arm. That's when she screamed and cried rape. The next morning, Tuesday, May 31st, 1921, Mr. Rowland was arrested by Officers Carmichael and Pack, even though Miss Page hadn't pressed any charges. 3:15, a newspaper titled "Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in Elevator" was released by the Tulsa Tribune. Strongly states and implies that Rowland attacked Page. When word had spread and the white community found out that a Negro had allegedly raped a white woman, a large white mob started to form at City Hall demanding that Dick Rowland must be lynched. Once the black community discovered this, they rallied together and went to City Hall in defense of Mr. Rowland. Then the two communities clashed. This led to an altercation between a white man and a black man. The white man approached the black man with a gun. Then the black man said, "What are you going to do with that gun?" To which the Caucasian man responded with, "I'm going to use it if I have to." Led to them tussling over the gun. A shot went off and the white man had been struck. Then the black community retreated back to Greenwood and tried to build a barrier incorporating the railroad. That didn't last for very long. White mobs forged into Greenwood with torches lit with fire. Whites even gave their children rifles and told them they can harm as many blacks as possible. Numerous accounts of looting, murder, and assault broke out in Tulsa throughout that 14-hour period. It like to be the end. The white mobs had set 35 blocks on fire, and they were all left in ashes.
Tulsa, the African American community in Tulsa was relatively prosperous, well educated. I mean, they had done everything that they were supposed to do in terms of the American dream. You work hard, you save your money, you go to school, you buy property. I mean, this is what they had done under horrific conditions. I mean, when you look at the context of what Black America looked like at the time, the fact that they were able to do this is one of the things that we herald in terms of when we talk about the immigrant story, right? But instead, this created such seething resentment in Tulsa that you had Black doctors, Black attorneys, Black businessmen. I mean, in fact, this area of Tulsa was known as Black Wall Street.
My daddy wasn't at home, just the kids and mama. They came and got us.
Was it white people from the city?
And got us to fairground. And we was there for about 2 or 3 days.
To the fairgrounds.
And my dad didn't know where we were.
Did your family want to leave?
My mother, you know, with all this stuff going on, she thought it might have been safer with them taking us out there and being with more people.
Everyone called it a race riot. The opinion piece in the newspaper condoned it, calling Greenwood Niggertown.
Do you consider it a riot?
No, ma'am, it was really murder. It was a massacre. My grandmother was awakened at night and just told to run. Just get up and run. And they ran, she was only 9, they ran for days. She got mixed up from her family and lost in a chicken coop.
Calling it a riot was convenient for a city run by whites. There's no statute of limitations for murder.
The one thing worse than the incident was a cover-up. So I would apply the same logic to what happens here. It's the failure to own the tragedy once it has happened. So we have, for decades, hidden this history, and it's like a festering wound that becomes worse and worse and worse for failure to address. And that's what's happened with this history. It certainly was horrible that the tragedy in 1921 happened, but it's equally horrible that we, for so long, denied and obfuscated the facts.
Many people suspected that the government had some involvement in the actions that were displayed during the Tulsa Race Massacre. In fact, the manuscript reads, "The sidewalks were literally covered in burning turpentine balls. I knew all too well where they came from, and I knew all too well why every burning building first caught from the top." He continues, "I paused and waited for the opportune time to escape. Where is our splendid fire department with its half a dozen stations, I asked myself. Is the city in a conspiracy with the mob?" There was a lot of speculation that the National Guard had sent fighter jets to come and bomb the Greenwood district. And many historians and survivors also said that they suspected the government had something to do with the massacre. The Tulsa Race Massacre was one of many that were yet to come. Black Wall Street was a triumph for the Black community in the 1920s. The group affected was the African American community. The Tulsa Race Massacre was a tragedy for the citizens of Greenwood. Some World War veterans even participated in the killings. Many families were separated. There was an undetermined number of deaths, but over 1,000 residents of Greenwood were burned and another 400 looted. The entire business district was destroyed, and archaeologists had to come to the burning site because of the mass graves. 30 years later, skeletal remains were still being found. On November 27, 2018, Senator Kevin Matthews renamed the Tulsa Race Riot Commission as the Tulsa Race Massacre Commission. The lasting effect that was even worse than the massacre itself was the cover-up. Hannibal B. Johnson, one of our interviewees, even compared the massacre to the Watergate situation with President Nixon. Events like this one have occurred many times in history before, from Rosewood to Detroit to Los Angeles. Race was and has continued to be the American story.
was played today during a discussion of the more recent racially charged events. Organizers talked about the role of the media in events related to the shooting death of Eric Harris. The Oprah Winfrey Network begins production in September on a miniseries based on the race riot.